Okay, so here we are. Wow, The Expendables 2. Let's get right into it. It's a movie directed by Simon West, and it's written by Sylvester Stallone and Richard Wenk. And of course, we have so many people in this movie. Oh my goodness, where do I even start? Okay, so we've got Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren. I'm going to say that a million different ways this time, like I did in the last review. Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terry Crews, Randy Couture, Liam Hemsworth, Scott Adkins, Nan, and Charisma Carpenter. It is a sequel to the previous Expendables movies, of course. And the general gist of this is, well, when one of their team dies by the hands of Scott Adkins and Jean-Claude Van Damme, the Expendables go on a rampage to avenge the death of their fallen comrade. And I'll say right off the bat, I enjoyed this movie a lot more than the first one. And I will have to bring this up because it is something that happened, but this movie has two controversies. One, a stuntman died in the making of this movie during an explosion on a bridge. Also, bats. Lots of bats were killed in the making of this movie when they used a cave in Bulgaria and didn't do good. Yeah, lots of bats died and it ruined the ecosystem or something like that. That was another big controversy this movie had. Other than that, this movie is a much better film than the first one. It might not have a villain as interesting or as charismatic as Eric Roberts, but hey, when he hams it up, it's kind of hard to beat. He was great, but we've got Jean-Claude Van Damme as the bad guy and one of my favourite B-movie action stars who should have crossed over into the A-Leagues already, Scott Adkins as his number 2, his henchman. Wow, there is a lot of silliness in this movie. There's still some problems in this movie that was in the first movie, like any opportunity they have to be sexist. Yeah, they take it. And some of it's really fucking awkward as well. So be aware of that. That is in the movie. The R word is used. I'm not going to say the R word, but it's there. And it's always glaring to me because it's not a word I like. However, let's get, after all of that, what makes this movie more watchable? Well, it's more streamlined, it's more fun, it's more focused, even though it's convoluted as hell in some areas, and there is a matter of people just teleporting places. So at some points in this movie, I just expected to hear the Star Trek transporter chime because for some reason, the people that are supposed to be over here are now ahead of the other guys, and they're over here waiting for them. And there's a bridge explosion at one point, but the bad guys escape on the bridge, and then the good guys follow them on the bridge and overtake them. And yeah, but there's things this movie does well, and there's something the first movie did not do, and this movie corrects it. Oh, all right. So there's some spoilers. There's going to be no surprise to anyone who watches 5 seconds of this movie that the Hemsworth brother in this movie, Liam, you know he's going to die as soon as you see him. They telegraph that shit like multiple times. You know he's going to die. So he's the one that dies, and they want to get revenge on him. And there's a scene where they bury him under a pile of rocks, even though the plane's in the background, and they could have just, like, you know, put him on the plane and taken him home, you know, or dug a hole and buried him because there's wolves around. They're just going to move them rocks and just eat this poor dude. So there's weird continuity things, but the one thing you wanted to see that they didn't do in the first movie is you want to see Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Sly Stallone whooping ass with guns. And you get it. And it is amazing. There's this end shooter at the airport, which is really cool. It's really well done. Kind of loved it, really. There's a cool cameo or two, but Chuck Norris doesn't really do much because he's probably 100 by the time this movie came out. Then there is also, before I gush a little more about the set piece, there's something Jet Li's written out of this movie really early, and you think he might come back later, and he never does. And thinking about that, I thought this movie would have had a lot more gravitas and balls if they had killed Jet Li off, and then they wanted revenge, because, well, you've killed one of their own, now it's revenge time, right? There's a woman on the team, her name's Maggie, played by Yunnan, and like, you'd think they'd give her cool shit to do, but they cut away from it or whatever, and they don't put her over as much as I wish they would, because I guess boobies, I don't know, she's a lady, and these movies are kind of casually and blatantly sexist. It is what it is, but the final act of the movie, the airport shootout, is well executed, and it's super fucking fun. It's a great time, and what you want in the ending is you want Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sly Stallone, to have a kick-ass knockdown drag out. They do. They also set up, and it's executed well, a fight between Jason Statham and Scott Adkins. Yes! Those fights are great too. So this movie delivers more on what you kind of want. You want to see action guys collide in awesome, interesting ways, and they do it more in this movie than the previous one. I guess Arnie, at this point, wasn't in his politics anymore, so they could do that. All right? So, yeah, it's pretty good in those respects, but there's weird continuity issues, the casual sexism, it's the bad dialogue, which is mostly revolving around bad movie references and things like that. So it's not a perfect movie, but I will say this, it's a lot better than the first movie. The first movie is big, dumb, fun, watchable with friends, and you just make fun of it. The second one, you can still do a bit of that, but at some points in the movie, you're going to be like, all right, yeah, that's really cool. And so, that's what you want. Sometimes I do write the score down beforehand, other times I've got to be like, no, I didn't do it, I guess I'll do it now. Also, yeah, I know, it's right there. Couldn't get my makeup department to kind of fix that, so that is what it is. But I'm going to give The Expendables 2 a better score than the previous one. Oh. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Yeah, well, you know, the guy died making this, and they fuck over a lot of bats, and it's still kind of sexist. They use the R word. It's continuity gaffes and all this kind of stuff that kind of make you go, it hurts my brain. But overall, yeah, they make up for some of that with a really cool final battle action scene, set pieces, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Expendables 2. Hey, I was wondering in my last review if the sequel would be better or more of the same. It was better. A little better, but hey, a little better is better than worse, and I'll take it. So yeah, that's The Expendables 2. Whew. Yeah. Where no one's expendable. To the point where if one of them dies, they all just seek revenge on them. No one's expendable, really. Alright. That's fine. And one last thing. Hey, if you all enjoyed my last review, you would have noticed that I said, hey, I did a podcast with a friend of mine for a podcast called The Road Home from Wrestling. And this movie's the same. I'll put a link down below. We cover this movie in depth, we have a good old laugh, and we have a great time talking Expendables 2. So, if you want more Expendables 2, link is down below.